Okay, let's get started with a heading that says note values. So, just a heading that says note values. You don't actually have to use the star for this bit. Later on you will. Okay, so values, not valves. It's a U. All right. So, a couple of things. What do we mean by that? So far you have learnt about notes on the treble clef and bass clef. So, for example, when we are talking about notes, so far we've talked to you that the notes of the treble clef and bass clef have a certain pitch. So, for example, this is a pitch. This is another pitch. This is another pitch. This is another pitch. Any of these notes belong in the bass clef or the treble clef. So, but the thing is, how do we know how long to hold these things? All right? If we want to play, if the composer, for example, wants to play a middle C in the bass clef or an F in the bass clef, how long do they have to be? So we do this by using note values. We get different shapes. You might have encountered this when we were doing these exercises prior, but not known why. These notes have different shapes. All right, so we've got these kind of notes. You might have encountered them. All right, these different notes, these different shapes tells us how many beats or how long or short do we hold that pitch. So, for example, this one here, and I would like you to write this down, is called a whole note. In the exercise book, it's called a whole note. In the sheets that we've been working out of, is called a whole note. But it also has another name, which is traditionally known in Australia as, did I knock this? As semi-breve. S-E-M-I, breve. Please pause the video now to copy that. Actually, don't copy just yet. Oh, well, copy this, but there's more to copy. This is worth 4 beats. Okay, worth 4 beats. You may have heard the name semi-breve or whole note in primary school. If you have not, that is okay. But you need to know that anything with this shape is worth 4 beats, and it's called a whole note or a semi-breve. So, copy this out before I rub it. Pause the video if you need to. Now, the next one is slightly more different to the whole note. This one is called, actually, we'll keep that there, and this one, we're going to add a stem. All right? This is called a half note. Why they call it that, you don't need to know just yet. When we do more advanced things over the years, you'll find out. Half note, also called, in Australia, traditionally, minim. M-I-N-I-M. In itself is a palindrome. A minim. Okay? It is worth 2 beats. Please write this down. Now, we've got another one. Pause the video and copy this down if you haven't already. Otherwise, we'll move on. This one is another one, kind of like that minim, but this time it's colored in. also with a stem. This is called a quarter note. Let me just write that. Quarter note. Traditionally known as a crotchet. C-R-O-T-C-H-E-T. And this is worth 1 beat. Okay? So far you have learned the whole note or semi-brief, which is 4 beats. You have learned the minim or half note, which is worth 2. And all the crotchet quarter note with 1 beat. What you need to know is the whole note just has an oval shape. The minim has a note head like that, less ovally, with a stem. This has a colored in stem with a colored in note head with a stem. Sorry, I just realized this is out of frame. That is a minim, just an oval shape. Okay, so did I knock this over again? All right, let's keep going. Now, with the stems, what you've learned so far is notes in the treble clef and the bass clef. So if I said to write a whole bunch of notes in the treble clef, for instance, I could draw a treble clef and then draw a bunch of notes. So let's say, actually let's start from C. Remember, C has a ledger line because it's below the staff. Then there's a D, then an E, then an F, G, A, B. Let's just stop at C. So technically what I've done there is drawn notes from C till C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. I've done that, okay? Now, all this time I've been drawing minims, semi-briefs or whole notes, but at the time it didn't matter how long they were worth. But now technically I've drawn notes in C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C over each worth 4 beats. So if I were going to add a metronome to this, just give me a second to open that. So if I put it to time, like I said, these are worth 4 beats. So hopefully you can hear this. All right, now each of these is worth 4 beats. You can hear each one of those pulses is a beat. So what I'm doing is drawing a C with a 4 beat note. That means that note lasts for 4 beats. 4 of those pulses you hear. Okay, so listen carefully. All right, so this is a C for 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because it says to play a C, because that's where a C belongs on a treble clef, and also the shape tells us how many beats. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the next note, D, 2, 3, 4, E, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, A, 3, 4, B, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4. Now, what would happen? Let me just turn this off for a second. What would happen if I turn those into minims? Okay, hopefully you can understand what I'm going with this. So I'm going to add stems to turn these into minims now. Okay, now, what you may have noticed is that now I'm putting stems going down. I'm going to add a few more notes to this, by the way. Let me just check. I'm not out of frame just yet. All right. Now, what you'll notice is I have made stems go upwards. Okay? And then, when I got to the middle line, I made the stems go down. That's a general rule of thumb. When you are below the middle line, all stems point upwards and are drawn on the right side. They go downwards and drawn on the left side when you get to the middle line and further. All right. Now, the other thing you need to do is know how long the stems go. So, I'm actually going to make this done properly. So, C goes up to the next C. Okay? So this is the next C in the treble clef. D. Where is D on the treble clef? The next D is here. And goes on like that. E goes to the next E, the stem. F goes to the F. G goes up to G. A goes up to A if there was a ledger line. Then B goes to the B below. C to C. D to D. And then E to on the E, and then F onto F here. So that is another general rule of thumb. You have to extend the stem till the next note of the same letter. So C, if you're trying to draw a C, you go to the next C. Now, I've also drawn two minims. Well, actually more than two minims. So let's have a look at that. So now, as you can see, I've changed it all to minims, and I've added a few more notes. C alphabetically is D, E, then F. Hope you understand what I did there. Now it is 2 beats. Let me get my metronome out again. Instead of 4 beats. So the same speed as before, where I actually did 4 beats prior. Now I'm going to do 2 beats per note. So let's just see how that sounds. Starting from C. Okay? 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. I just finished at F. So I hope you understand that. Now, what if I turn them into crotchets? I assume you can understand what's going to happen there. Alright, so all I need to do is color them. They are now crotchets. Fill them in, I should say. So, can you guess what will happen here? Obviously you can't answer me, but hopefully you can understand what's going to happen. I'll demonstrate it either way. But, so now crotchets are worth 1 beat. That means one of those notes are going to be played during only one of these pulses. Alright? So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you can see what I did there, hopefully. Now, what have we learned so far? Now we have learned what notes, the notes of the treble clef and the bass clef, and how to play them on the keyboard. All right, if you don't remember that, go back through your notes. If you see a note anywhere along the 5 lines or spaces, and 4 spaces, it tells us what note to play on the keyboard. Okay, whenever they are on one of these 5 lines or 4 spaces. If that changes to a bass clef, same deal, but this time these notes are different and they all sound lower. Hopefully you understood that from the listening exercise we did last class. But what we've also learned is how long to play these notes now based on the shape. So, just some rules of thumb. When you are drawing notes of different shapes on the bass clef or treble clef, you have to remember 1, the stems for the minims and crotchets, 2, to color in the crotchets, and also you need to make sure you remember to try to draw the stem to the next note of the same letter. I hope that makes sense. So, that is all you need to know today. Homework.